Good morning. One of my favorite hero roundtable memories is I did my speech, I walked off stage, and a guy named Ernest White, like the third, I think, came up after me. And so I'm like, they're taking my mic off, and I'm like, just getting ready to go do my next thing. And Ernest walks out, he goes, "I am a gay man. And even I am not as gay as that last guy's jacket." So I think that's a compliment. That's the way I'm going to take it. And so I really enjoyed that. And that's a perfect lead-in to what we're talking about today. So my idea today is really simple, that heroes are freaks. Right? Heroes are freaks. Heroes stick out while everyone else fits in. Right? Heroes see strength where everyone else sees weakness. Right? If you're not willing to be weird, you're not going to be able to be a hero, because most people aren't heroes, and heroes do things that most people won't do. And as it relates to the pink jacket, if you can't do weird things in inconsequential ways, you won't be able to do weird things in ways that really matter. And if you're uncomfortable with what people think about how you dress, you're going to allow that concern to affect how you interact with people when the situation is really crucial. So my message today is really simple, is that what makes us weird also makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong, right? What makes us weird also makes us wonderful. What makes us weak also makes us strong. The first thing people want to know when they meet me is always, how tall are you? The answer to that is I'm 6'6", but I'm 6'9" in heels. And one of the problems with growing up tall and growing up poor, I grew up in a trailer park in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. When you grow up tall and you grow up poor, you grow up faster than your family's ability to get you pants. So I always had high water pants or floods. They never made it all the way down to the floor. And the kids at school would tease me and hurt my feelings. And my mom knew they were teasing me, hurting my feelings. She wanted me to feel better. She told me they were capri pants and they were coming back in style, right? That turned out not to be true. I'm 6'6". My wife of 28 years is just 5'3". A lot of people are like, hey, how does that work? You're so tall, she's so small. How does that work? And what I tell people is that in our relationship, deodorant is much more important than breath mints. So I've always been different. It takes some people longer to get that than others. It kind of works its way through the room. A little bit of a thinker first thing in the morning. So I've always been different in ways that I can't choose, but now, as you can see, I'm different in ways that I can choose, right? I'm different in ways that I can choose, because what makes us weird also makes us wonderful, and what makes us weak also makes us strong. But we don't believe that, right? We live in a world that teaches us that what makes us weird makes us awful, what makes us weak makes us wrong. The most common response I get to the pink pants is some guy, and it's always a guy, and he says, "I love the pink pants, but I don't think I could pull that off," right? In other words, I don't want to deal with the crap that I would get from other people for wearing pink pants. I don't think that weird is wonderful. I think that most people think weird isn't wonderful, and I tell them it's just a two-step process, right? Buy some pink pants and put them on, right? And then people will come up to you and go, "Hey man, I love those pink pants, but I don't think I could pull that off," right? When you pull them on, you are pulling it off. But we live in a world that teaches us that what makes us weird makes us awful, and that our weaknesses are something to hide, to be ashamed of, that they're things that make us wrong. And I want to give you a different perspective today. There's a book named Deep Change, which I really recommend. And in Deep Change, Robert Quinn says, deviance will always generate external pressures to conform. If you perform beyond the norms, the systems will adjust and try to make you normal. Deviance will always, not sometimes, right, will always. And being a hero is being a deviant, and that means you're going to experience pressure. People say, "Oh, you're going to try to do that good thing, but you're going to be risking your finances. You're going to be risking your safety. You're going to be risking your health. Do you really think that's a good idea? Do you really think that's appropriate to do, given the fact that you have a family?" Even when you're being deviant in a positive way, it's going to generate external pressures to conform. And if you're uncomfortable being a freak, you're not going to be able to be a hero. So I was always in trouble at school for three things. I couldn't sit still, be quiet, and do what I was told. That means teachers didn't like me very much. They called me obnoxious, rebellious, inappropriate, immature, told me I had no self-discipline and no self-control, and if I couldn't fix those things, I was going to end up homeless and living in a van down by the river, right? Sooner or later, they'd kick me out of class. They'd send me to the principal's office. And I remember I was in third grade, so I was 8 years old. I got sent to the principal's office, and he sat me down in his lap, which seems questionable now, looking back on it, and he told me a story about three kinds of bad people. He told me there's bad people, there's really bad people, and there's people who are too far gone. He told me I was a really bad kid on the verge of being too far gone if I couldn't learn to sit still, be quiet, and do what I was told. Right? In his mind, if I couldn't fix my weaknesses, I was never going to be successful. Right? And he wasn't the only person that thought that. Our parents, teachers, employers all teach us that if we can find and fix our weaknesses, that's the way we'll find success. And I'm not the only one who had trouble at school. Ken Robinson says many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not because the thing they were good at school wasn't valued or was actually stigmatized. Many highly talented, brilliant, creative people think they're not because the thing they were good at, their strength, wasn't valued, it was ignored or denied, or it was actually stigmatized. We tell people every day that the best thing about them is the worst thing about them. And I realized that that was exactly what happened to me. Because as an adult, I became a professional speaker, and now I get paid to stand up, not to sit down. I get paid to talk and not to be quiet. I get paid to run my own business and not to do what other people tell me to do. It turned out that every one of my weaknesses was also a strength. Right? But nobody saw that. My parents didn't see it. My teachers didn't see it. My employers didn't see it. So I didn't see it. And I didn't know what was best about me because everybody else was calling it my worst. And one of the ways we can be what I would call a psychological hero is by helping people to discover the strength that is hiding inside of them that other people see as weakness and looking past their weirdness and discovering the value that they give to the world and being maybe the only person who tells them about that. So the main message here today is that every characteristic that we have is a strength and a weakness at the same time. One of the ways to understand that is with height. It's good to be tall. We pay tall people more than we pay smaller people for the same work. It's not right, but it happens and it benefits the tall people, and I'm tall, so I don't care about the rest of you. We think tall people are smarter than they actually are. As people get taller, we overestimate their intelligence. We relate their height to their intelligence, and there's no connection between height and intelligence. I think there is, but science, disagrees with me. And so then we vote for tall people in elections because we think they're smarter, so we think they're better, so we think they'd be a better leader. So it's good to be tall. Until it's not good to be tall. And one of the places it's not good to be tall is on an airplane. Right? Is on an airplane. I always fly out of Raleigh, North Carolina, which isn't a big city, so it's not a hub for any major airline. So you start every flight on what's called a regional jet. Right? This is a Fisher-Price airplane. This is not a real airplane designed for regular-sized people. And so I always get on, the flight attendant says, watch your head, which is hard to do if you've ever tried. And I get on the airplane like this, right? And you're like, whatever, Dave, we've ducked before. And you have, but you're used to re-emerging on the other side, right? I don't get to re-emerge. I just shuffle like a hobbit to my seat, right? But I fly a lot. So I got that economy comfort seat. I get that exit row. I get that sweet, sweet first-class upgrade. I'm okay once I sit down, but sooner or later I have to go to the bathroom. And if you don't fit in the middle of the plane, you certainly don't fit on the side of the plane where they put these bathrooms. And some people have accused me of exaggerating this next part, which is why I've taken the liberty of an airplane bathroom selfie, right? So I get in the airplane bathroom, I close the door behind me, I try to latch it, but I can't be sure, right? Because I can't turn around to check it. And now I'm here, but the toilet's over there, and I have things that need to go in the toilet. So I try to move closer, but the ceiling goes like this. So as I try to move closer, it just pushes my face closer and closer to the toilet. And that's not what I'm looking for. So I've designed something I like to call the limbo yoga approach. What I do is I press my face into the ceiling, and I try to form my upper body to the shape of the side of the airplane. Just get it in there. Which allows me to move the lower body in and rotate. But the problem is there's not a lot of visual information now about what's about to happen. But I'm a problem solver, and at some point I realized that there is a sink right there. It's a whole lot higher, and it's a whole lot closer. It's custom designed for what needs to happen here, right? Now, some of you are disgusted by that, and that's because you misunderstood me. The same way a guy misunderstood me in South Carolina years ago. He came up to me after the talk. He goes, I know what you mean, Dave. He goes, I'm a big guy. I don't even try for the toilet anymore in those airplane bathrooms. I just go right in the sink every time. I was like, that's because you're disgusting. I said, you got confused. That was a true story that I turned into a funny story. I don't go in the sink. I'm not an animal. I go all over the wall like a normal person does because I'm classy, right? It's good to be tall until it's not good to be tall, right? Every characteristic is a strength and a weakness at the same time. George Eliot said every limit is a beginning as well as an ending. I want to show you the beginnings that come with some of the limits that we have. People with dyslexia seem to have a pretty big limit. They struggle to read and struggle to write, so they're going to struggle in school. And we've all been taught that if you struggle in school, you'll struggle in life. But Ingvar Kamprad The billionaire founder of IKEA had dyslexia. Richard Branson, the billionaire founder of the Virgin series of companies, had dyslexia. And then he said this, when they asked him, how has dyslexia affected your success? He said, strangely, I think my dyslexia has helped. Scientists are starting to realize that people with dyslexia don't have broken brains, they have different brains. And the same brain that causes them to succeed or to struggle in school causes them to succeed in life at a higher level than most of the rest of us ever will. This guy's name was Paul Orfalea. He got kicked out of 4 schools, got fired from every job he had, including a job he had working for his own father. So then he started a business, built it into a multinational corporation, sold it to FedEx for $2.4 billion. He called it Kinko's. Right? And he said this, he said, I think everyone should have dyslexia. Right? He recognized, the subtitle of his book basically says how a hyperactive dyslexic built $1 billion corporation. He didn't succeed even though he has dyslexia. He succeeded because he has dyslexia, because what makes him weird makes him wonderful, and what makes him weak makes him strong, but in a world that doesn't believe that. Right? When I was 12 years old, I fell off my bike and I broke my left arm in half. Came up like this, 90-degree angle to the rest of my forearm. They took me to the hospital. They didn't do surgery because it was the 1980s and medicine hadn't progressed that far. And so they put me in traction and they set the bones as best they could and put me in a cast up to my shoulder for 3 months. And after 3 months, they took off the cast and they told me I was good, but it turns out that I wasn't, but I didn't know that yet. And 8 years later, I was in college and my friend Carl was playing the guitar. I said, Carl, can you show me how to play the guitar? And he tried and he failed and he thought I was stupid and I thought I was stupid. And then we realized they put me back together wrong at the hospital when I was 12. You should be able to do this. It's called supination. This is called pronation. You should be able to do both of those things. I can pronate with my left arm, the one that I broke, but I cannot supinate at all. And to play the guitar, you have to turn your hand inside out, and I can't turn my hand over. And it was in that moment that I realized why I had struggled at the drive-thru for so many years. Right? I thought all of us were struggling at the drive-thru, but it turns out it's just me, right? Because I can give them the money just fine. But then I go to get the change, and I'm like, right? They're like, sir, you need to turn your hand over. And I'm like, okay. They're like, but you also have to reach it out. And I'm like, all right. My sister-in-law had a great idea for me. She said, I need a basket on a stick and just put it in there, right? But years ago, I was able to go to Australia, the home of Matt Langdon. And in Australia, they drive on the left-hand side of the road, so they drive on the right-hand side of the car. Does anybody know the first place that I drove when I drove in Australia for the first time? Yeah, I went to McDonald's. You're damn right I did, because I wanted to know what it felt like to reach my right arm out the window at the drive-thru, right? When I'm in America, I function terribly because I'm disabled and damaged in 2 different ways in my left arm. When I go to Australia to the drive-thru, I function perfectly, not because I've changed who I am, but because I've changed where I am. I haven't changed the person, I've changed the place. You see, situations are powerful, and they can either put the spotlight on the best things about us, or they can put the spotlight on the worst things about us. And the biggest mistake we make in this world is we say something's wrong with that person, instead of saying there's a bad fit between who that person is and where that person is. And one of the most powerful ways that we can impact other people's life is to find the strength that goes with their weakness and then help them find a situation that rewards them for who they are instead of trying to turn them into someone else. What makes us weird also makes us wonderful. What makes us weak also makes us strong, right? Heroes are freaks. Heroes stick out while everyone else is trying to fit in. Heroes find strength where everyone else sees weakness. Thank you very much.